Malays don't get enough credit for Singapore creation. When we talk about Singapore expulsion from Malaysia, the most common denigrations that we hear is that Malays are racist or Malay hate minority. But does that make sense? Is there any country in this world that willingly concede historically an economically important region to minority because they hate minority? And why would a country punish a minority by relinquishing their power over them? So why Singapore was expelled from Malaysia? In order to understand this, we have to dive a little bit into the history about Malaysia and Singapore. Before Malaysia and Singapore were colonized by British, they were mainly inhabited by Malay and few other Austronesian ethnic groups. Singapore was under Malacca Sultanate and then under Johor Sultanate, while Malacca was colonized by Portuguese. According to Singapore Constitution, Malay are considered as the natives, and Malay language also considered as one of the official languages in Singapore. In 1819, Singapore was officially colonized by British when Sir Stamford Raffles took advantage of Johor Sultanate power struggle and made a deal to be a trading post to rival the Dutch influence in that region. When British colonized Malaya, Singapore, they import many Chinese and Indians to work at mine and plantation. British used divide and rule strategy, which means there is no racial integration. Malay mostly live in a rural area, Chinese mostly live at mining town, and Indian mostly live at the estate. British import a lot of Chinese that it significantly changed the demography of Malaysia and Singapore at the time. It is estimated there's around 4 million Malay, including from Borneo, and 3.7 million Chinese at the time of Malaysia and Singapore merger in 1963. Malaysia and Chinese have different culture, language, religion, and economic disparity, and unsurprisingly, they didn't get along. It is suspected. Imagine you were invaded by foreign power and they import many people from other countries that is visibly and culturally different than you. And this immigration start to change the demography of your country, almost making you the minority. And then the foreign power left without fixing anything, and all of this happened in 1950s, when the concept of diversity is unheard of. What is the expected outcome from this? Chaos. Even France has many problems and strong opposition with immigration in 21st century, even though France's population is still 80% of European descent. We can see chaos happen in 1964 and 1969 race riots, where hundreds of people, mostly Chinese, were killed. Realizing that the two communities couldn't live harmoniously due to cultural, language, religion, and policies differences, Malaysia Prime Minister at the time, Tunku Abdul Rahman, decided that the best course of action to take is to part way and give up a historically important region to the Chinese.
And the leaders of the Singapore state government. And these differences take so many forms and are of so many kinds that it has not been possible to resolve them. And so we decided that we must part company.
Honestly, not enough credit was given to Malay at the time because they're able to put their pride aside and not fight for a piece of land. Something that's definitely not easy to do. One of the theories on why Malaysia kicked Singapore out is because of Lee Kuan Yew's growing influence on Malay population, which is a threat to Malay politicians. But this is not entirely true. Lee Kuan Yew did have strong influence but mostly limited to Chinese. It's very unlikely for Malaysian Malaysia idea to be accepted by Malay, considering strong nationalism and lack of racial unity concept in 1950s. And even today, the idea is still unfavorable. Add to the fact that Malaysia-Singapore merger agreement which heavily favor Malaysia. According to the agreement, defense, external affairs, and internal security would come under the jurisdiction of the federal government, which means Singapore won't have their own army. Singapore would have only 15 seats in the federal parliament instead of 25 seats, as was entitled by the size of its electorate. All Singapore citizens would retain their Singapore citizenship while automatically becoming citizens of the larger federation. However, they could only vote in Singapore. Singapore will contribute 40% of its revenue to the federal government, and a common market will be set up over a period of 12 years. Singapore will provide a $150 million development loan to North Borneo and Sarawak, of which $100 million will be interest-free for 5 years. This is part of an agreement that was agreed upon by Singapore and Malaysia. With this much power and influence Malaysia had over Singapore, it's quite bizarre to say that Malaysia need to expel Singapore in order to punish them when they can just keep them, like many other countries in the world. In conclusion, Malay's decision to expel Singapore at the time isn't due to malice, but more toward the understanding that the two entirely foreign communities due to British segregation rule incompatible to live together and better off with their own way. It's also understandable when Malay refused to accept the concept of Malaysian Malaysia, which is a threat to their identity and culture. They're able to put their pride aside to give up a historically and economically important island for minority that was unwillingly and unfairly imposed to the Malay by the foreign power, something which definitely can be done by any other country in the world, especially in the 1960s. This video is brought to you by Carila.com.my. Carila is an online marketplace where you can look for and advertise your products for free. You can advertise your properties, your vehicles, your job listing, and pretty much anything. You can add images and also a video of your products in this website. Increase the visibility of your products for free now in Carila.com.my.